All right, so it is 7:02. We'll call the Wenham Town Government Study Committee meeting to order. The meeting is virtual. All votes will be by roll call, and the meeting is being recorded. I think that's all I need. Attending, we have Harriet Davis, Dave Anderson, Roger Smerge, Kirsten Alexander, Deirdre Parati, Mike Lucy, and myself, Pat Waddell. Ryan Ferrara is our ex officio member, and Catherine Tinsley is taking our minutes. Thank you, Catherine. And Ryan. And I'm assuming Paul will be here shortly.
Paul is not coming tonight.
Yeah, I believe he said he had a conflict.
Okay.
I do recall that from the last.
Yeah, he emailed me today with a comment. When it's appropriate, I'll share it with the committee.
Okay. Just pull up the agenda. That's the wrong agenda. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that I did, on the advice of town council, I did take down, Harriet, your minority report. Information was there that really was not germane to the 3 to 5 question. So that document has been removed. So we will open up to public comment, although there's no members of the public that I see. I will just give it a couple seconds. Moving on. I apologize. I have not read the minutes for the 10:10 meeting. Actually, that's 11:10. It should be. Has everyone else read them? Are there any comments? I can read them quickly right now. Yes, Roger.
One possible revision, and this is more substantive than typographical, so I think we should discuss it. But I wonder if it's more accurate in the continued deliberation section, the sentence that begins, "The committee did not agree." After the word "and," to change "no adequate research was done" to "whether adequate research was done." So I think that was the nature of the discussion, rather than a conclusion about adequate research having been reached.
Roger, you're proposing to add the word "whether"?
To replace the word "no" with "whether" before "adequate research."
Got it.
So it would be strike the word "no" and insert the word "whether."
I personally would agree with that. Any other thoughts on just changing that word?
I move they be adopted.
Is there a second?
With that change, Mike?
Yes. Sorry.
And second.
Harriet?
Fine, yes.
Dave?
Abstain since I wasn't there.
Deirdre?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Minutes are approved. All right. There's something else I wanted to bring up, but I can't remember what it was. Not in the minutes. So you'll see drafts out there. Roger, thank you very much. Deirdre, thank you very much. I think those are, you've done a lot more work than I have. The things are much more well fleshed out than the bare bones that I put out there. I put out there just basically following along with Belmont's report, a list of pros and cons, and then kind of add a little meat to the bones for each one. I'm not sure if that's the format that the majority would like to continue on, or if there's a different tack to take.
I thought that the writing part that both Roger and Deirdre did that flowed really well. So when I got to your part, I was like, I'm hoping this is going to be fleshed out into real sentences and this is just an outline. But I definitely think that would help. And I also think after reading through everything, we should probably have an executive summary so people who just want to read the first couple paragraphs can get to the meat of it.
Yes. And I was actually starting to work on that before baseball practice.
Yeah, I figured there's been a lot of games this week that are really important. The other thing I just wanted to recommend is that when we talk about pros and cons, that we say either perceived pros and cons or possible pros and cons, because there's no surety that something is going to be a con or a pro. For example, lack of people to run for offices. Like, we don't know if that's going to be true or not. There were just a few things, and it just sort of was presented as like, this is a fact that this was a bad thing that would happen with 3 or with 5. So I just want to caution people.
Yeah, I was actually, the pros and cons was just kind of a placeholder. I was actually thinking more arguments for moving to 5 and arguments against with a counter argument. So yes, the point taken.
So I'm not sure how you want to do this, Patrick, if you want us to each give our sort of overall comments, or go piece by piece, or
well, I do remember what I was going to say. So Ryan did reach out to town council on where to do this without violating the open meeting law, and did say that comments not in an open meeting should be sent directly to me alone, and then I can make edits, and no serial conversations and anything like that. So I'm open to whatever people would like to do. If we want to go, because a lot of the points I pulled out of different reports, or so if we think there's a better order or things that don't make sense and should be removed from the majority report. I mean, I don't think there's a minority report out there as of now. Oh, and so Deirdre added in the main drive, there's now report sections, and that will be for the pieces of the final report. So Roger, I moved your piece into that drive, into that folder. So just so you know where to go when looking for the final report pieces.
Yep. And I know my homework, for lack of a better term, was just to do the introduction / preamble, but I thought it just made sense, and I apologize if you can hear my crying daughter in the background. I thought it made sense to at least put like a structure, a skeleton in the same document, so that we have roadmap is not the word I want to use. It's the only one that's coming to mind places where we can plug in and kind of think about what other sections. I think the idea of an executive summary makes sense. So, but we obviously don't have to adhere to the format that I proposed, but I just thought it makes sense to have a working document like that.
I
Yeah.
like that. Go ahead, Deborah.
I was just going to say, it's sort of similar to Kirsten. I'll just do some broader comments, but I thought that was helpful, Roger, to see how the sections would lay out. And I think it's probably pretty close. I agree with executive summary. Absolutely. Probably we should do that at the end when this is all drafted and see how it lays out. I wanted to just note, I saved the section I wrote in PDF only because if you open it between Word and Google Docs, the graphics go all over the place. So just to spare you that aggravation. But if anyone wants it in Word, and Kirsten, when it comes time to edit, I can certainly send it to you in Word. Patrick, I thought your outline was helpful. And I didn't really have any particular disagreements with any of it. I do agree, though, that it needs to be a narrative argument. And if you want, I'm happy to take your outline and start to move it into a narrative form. So if you would like me to do that, I'm happy to.
I would take you up on that offer in a second. I like the work you've done, and I think yes, I will take you up on that. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh,
And then-
thank you.
Roger,
Patrick.
I think. Oh, sorry.
Go
I just
Go
had-
ahead, Deidre, finish your thought.
Okay, thanks. Roger, I just think what you did and what I did, there's some overlap, so we need to smooth out because some of it's redundant. So maybe I take a few of your sentences, put it that pertain to the research methods and drop it down, just so that it's not overlapping.
Yeah,
And I had a couple of specific comments on the sections, but not major.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I thought, Deidre, what you put together was very good, and I think what we had aimed for it. One thing I would, and I know it's a style thing rather than a substance thing, but I noticed a number of "we see that" phrasing, and I think you can just delete that and just say what the data is.
I don't even realize I do that.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Like I have the same like turns of phrase that I use in my legal writing, and I have either clients or partners or even sometimes judges who are like, really, Mr. Marriage, you said that again? Oh, fell into my own trap.
Mike, go ahead.
Yes. So if I follow this, there have been individual submissions of different parts of this thing into the reports section. And what you're talking about now is merging them. And it seems to me that we should basically have the majority group, the four of you, do whatever you need to do in the next 2 weeks to present the draft document as seen by the majority. That includes A to Z, I mean, the shell format, etc. And it's going to be our working draft as of December 2nd or whenever our next meeting is. And we all read that ahead of the meeting, or you send it around and say, this is the subject of tonight's meeting. And then we all get our hands around what we do. Following that, 2 weeks later, Harriet and I will submit a minority report based on what the majority is saying and the framework of the whole thing. It seems like 1 step, 2 step, and we get there. Then there's the Christmas break, and we resume in January to fine tune this package to deliver to the selectmen in plenty of time for a town meeting. Is that roughly okay pathway?
I think so. I don't know why, if the minority has to wait for the majority. As a non-attorney, but someone who watches court TV, recently anyway, the prosecution gets to the second bite of the apple, right? But
Well,
anyway,
whatever makes sense.
yeah, no, but I think it makes sense. If minority wants to wait for a couple weeks,
only because we're meeting every other week, and there needs to be a main focus on what will be the 15, 20, 30-page big document, which is going to have a 2-page minority report, maybe.
I don't think it'll be that big. I really don't. I don't see it getting that large. Since Deirdre has graciously offered to take over the majority report, I offer up that I could add some addenda to it, which is, election format if we were to do this, and some of the minutia that may be helpful to the select board. If we are to move forward.
And Patrick, on that front, one thing that I did do, as people will see in the shell document, is include a section on potential additional observations. Now, I think that any content of that would be adopted by the committee as a whole, since the report is being submitted by the committee as a whole. But if the committee felt that observations such as election format or term staggering were warranted, then that might also be a place for those things. I did that. I think it was the Belmont report had a similar section where they included additional observations, and I thought that might be wise. Mike, to your point, and this goes to Patrick's, and by no means are we bound to the structure of courts. We're not a court here. Typically, when you have in an appellate court where you have decisions that are a majority and a minority, and they're kind of working out, both sides can work on their decisions, opinions in tandem, and send drafts back and forth so that each side sees how the other's arguments are evolving as they work to final decisions. So, it's not like the majority has to be done and bound to its writing before the minority.
Sure. I don't feel
Harriet, however obviously it's whatever you guys feel is appropriate.
I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I just thought, okay, we know that straw poll 4-2, whatever, with Roger, you absenting. So we know the majority wants to say, let's go to 5, and you'll lay out the reasons you think they are. And the minority similarly feels staying with 3. So, I mean, we could draft this thing locked in a room tomorrow, done, okay,
Right.
it's 4-2. So there's the majority opinion, the 4. So what's the minority about? Well, reacting to, taking a stance in favor of 3, but also reacting to the majority view. That's why it's called a minority report. So I was just thinking, okay, let's get this going here. The 4 of you produce the document you like, and in 2 or 3 weeks, call us. We have another meeting. We all talk about it, and at that other meeting, Harriet and I bring a minority report in time for the agenda of that meeting, i.e. ahead of time. Then we can all talk about it, examine it. But that's whatever you think. If you want them simultaneous, it can be done.
I don't know. There are some other ways of looking at this. If the majority report is put forward, then the minority report could answer it. Let's think about what's going to happen to this report. It will go to the selectmen at some form. It may well go to town meeting. And the person is going to be sitting there thinking, well, I've got these two reports and what do I do with them? If somehow we could answer each other, I just think it would be more useful to the town meeting.
Well, I think the shell that I guess, Roger, you did, the shell outline, if you've seen it under the summary of recommendation, there's the next one is majority recommendation, minority recommendation, all incorporated in the same document. And then if I follow this correctly, the Deidre's stuff in color, you know, the various graphs,
Right.
that's part of it. A cleaned up version of Patrick's pros and cons, you know, fleshed out, whatever. And we plug into the minority section there. And pretty soon the whole thing is, you know, 20 pages, but that's okay.
Now,
The
is this,
townspeople
Roger,
wanna
going
know
in the,
what- Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, is it going in the warrant book or what's going to happen to this document?
This will be delivered to the
Don't
select.
know.
No, we're going to deliver it to the select board and then they will deliberate and determine, you know, whether they want to move forward with a warrant article. And just so everyone's clear, the straw poll we took was just that. No one has bound to their vote. Votes can change. This can be fluid. So that was just a straw poll. But they may make it available at town meeting. We may make it available at town meeting. I will get up and address it if it goes to town meeting, I'm sure. But I don't know. I don't think the whole thing will make it into the warrant book. I don't know for sure.
Right.
Patrick,
Yes, sir.
interesting. One path would be that we present the full report, majority recommendation, minority, the appendices, whatever. The document is toted up to the select board in early February, whenever, and they then dwell on it and decide what they want to do. And the path open, there are two paths open to them. No, we're not persuaded by this. The ball stops here. Boom, the curtain comes down. Subset to that is you and others, the four and others, work the traps at town meeting with another proposal, right? What do you call it? Citizens petition. Whatever. That's the scenario where the selectmen say no. The scenario where the selectmen say, yeah, this is pretty good. Thank you, committee. Good work. We'll pass this along in the materials for the ATM, i.e. it'll be in the warrant book, you would think, or a handout at a minimum, because the townsfolk, you know, are paying for this study and they want to know what the results are. And that's a perfectly fine process. That's typical of what happens, it seems to me. I would urge the selectmen not to bottle it up, but that the document, when we're finished with it, it's passed through to the citizenry and they act on it at the meeting, even though it then takes other legal steps to implement the decision, if it's favorable decision by the townspeople. We know that.
I think it's easier to get into the warrant book at this point because the warrant book is now soft copy instead of, you know, hard copies being dropped on everyone's doorstep. Kirsten?
Just one thing that I think should go in there, and maybe it's under the research area, is the financial implications, including the research we did about what other towns pay their select board members, what we currently have in our budget for select board members, and just a couple of ways, you know, that could be addressed. Like we could, if there were 5 members, they could all receive the same amount as current ones. We could get rid of the budget. We could divide the current budget by 5. You know, those are all options that could be taken by the town, so that they really understand. And then also, like, in comparison to other towns, what do we pay our select board members? I think that's really eye-opening and helpful information. And I didn't see it anywhere in there right now.
Again, Kirsten, that was why I included the additional observations section for at
Yeah.
least in my mind, things like that. Again, if we as a body all agree that that information without argument one way or the other is, pertinent to the town, then that would be possibly a place for it. It's also
Yeah.
possible that, one side or the other feels that they can argue that warrant the recommendation one way or the other. But yeah,
and that
additional observations.
I'm also assuming that at this point we've determined, or by that point we will have determined that that select board members cannot get benefits. And I don't know if that's 100% resolved, but we should have it resolved for the report, ideally.
Yes. And I don't think it's 100% resolved, but I think it's pretty clear. I believe that the 2002 action precludes members. I think the language could be cleaned up, but
Yeah.
I think anyone working less than 20 hours is not eligible. Deirdre?
So I would also include appendices, and I think that's a place where the FAQs that include some of this information could go, as well as the complete list of pros and cons that were derived from the research responses. So I think those are two sections that I think would make sense in the appendices. And I think if we're going to include the financial information, then I would want to do it a little more comprehensively, the part about what other towns pay, because I don't know how that sample was taken, but it's a few towns. A little broader representation, I think, would be more beneficial, because we don't know how that sample was drawn. I mean, Patrick, maybe you do, but
I do, and I am happy to go. I did it. I just called towns. I looked through their financials, and then when I couldn't find it, I called the towns. But I can definitely expand that to be a greater representation of this area. Maybe
Essex County towns, since we have that as one of our data sets.
Would that be wide enough, do you think? It's definitely a defined area, so that, and I can definitely get that. And just on the stipends, I did have a conversation with a select board member, and we talked about stipends. And one, but probably getting too far afield. We could also, the select board could sunset their stipends to make it pro bono, but that's another issue. But yeah, I can definitely get the everyone's stipends, town structure of government, where the stipends are.
Not to speak for the majority, but one of the themes that I see among our colleagues here is, okay, we really feel strongly about having a select board of 5. I would urge a certain amount of reservation to end up down a track of doing the finances and all this. Get 5 seats if that's what you want, but don't try and get 25 grand or 100,000 for healthcare or whatever. Just shut it down. Be satisfied with getting 5. That's as a minority person, it's a friendly gesture to my majority colleagues.
My thought, Mike, was just that I know that's the number one question people will have. Like, what's it going to cost us if we do it? And so giving them the data so that they can decide, like, the budget should be 0 because we all volunteer, and why should they get paid and other people, volunteers, don't? Or fine, let's give everybody the same amount that we give them now, and we're going to sign off on that. Or let's divvy up the amount. Like, those are just different options that the town could take. But I think they need the data.
I can get, like I said, the data, but I also think it may belong in the pros and cons, because if you receive a stipend, it may give you a sense of being an employee. And as an employee, there's work that has to be done. So there's time that needs to be spent inside town hall. And one of the arguments is a board of 3 acts as more of a day-to-day management inside town hall, as a board of 5 is more of a policy board, just at the meetings setting, longer term policy for the town. So I can see it in both places. Here's what everyone else pays in the addenda, and then here's the reason why maybe stipends don't make sense. And crickets. So is there anything, so we've got, just looking at the appendices, one would be the steps to enact, which could include a ballot vote. These are the steps that have to go through. The different election format, staggered versus everyone's up at the same time. The stipend information across Essex County, the FAQ, the pros and cons derived directly from the research. Is there anything else we want to add in that section? This is what's going to add the extra length to the report.
Patrick, do you want the committee's original charge document from the Board of Selectmen or wherever it came from? Should that
Yes.
be in the appendix?
Yeah, I think the summary sentence is, Wenham be better served with 3 or 5 can be the header, but the actual document, that'd be a good one to add at the end.
But we stop short of, for example, an expansive appendix that would include all the minutes of the meetings. That's not necessary, correct?
I don't think so, no. If someone wants to
Pretty soon it'll be 40 pages, Patrick.
It's a soft copy, Mike. Soft copy, right? Yeah.
Right.
They tell my kids,
Those
hey,
are key documents that would be handy to the citizenry in an appendix, I would think.
Yeah. As I tell my kids, when you're going car camping, it doesn't matter what you pack because you just fill the car. You're not putting it on your back. Adding the charge document to the appendices. Anything else we want to bring up tonight?
Just to confirm, if I understand correctly, you would like the minority draft to be available to the committee at the next meeting. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
All right. Well,
It doesn't have to be the final draft. It's just
no. These are all, dynamic living documents. But in terms of kind of corralling the pieces, it will be nice to do that in 2 weeks, it sounds like.
Yes. Yep. Again, if people have edits that they'd like to make, you could send them to me. We all have access to these drives. So if you wanted to save a document out there, but just want to make sure there's no serial conversations going on. And we can't we're not supposed to live edit in Google Docs, just in, for the OML, especially for the majority report. I could make the edits online and make the documents available to all.
Patrick, just out of an abundance of caution on the OML, so if I read your draft, or really any draft, I have two options. One would be to edit privately and send to you or to the author as feedback. And the other option would be to come to the meeting and actually just share my feedback.
Yes, I wouldn't say with the author. I would send it to me as the chair, and then you can incorporate, or we can bring it to the next meeting and say, Dave suggests that we edit this section here, but that way we have a list of edits that are desired and potentially the non-controversial. Maybe we'll do a redlined copy, so we know what has been changed. I think my rough outline skeleton. I think that needs to be redlined. I think that needs to be put in better hands.
I'll add one other thing if I could, not to go dive too far back into the meeting, but another way to present the information in kind of a one-pager for the thought of just a quick presentation to the public is, I don't think this is duplicative of what we already talked, but stop me if you think it is. It's one page where essentially 2/3 of the page, you have 4 boxes, and 2/3 of the way down is 2 boxes. The majority says this, or the proponents of 5 say this. This is the argument in favor of it. And the proponents of staying with 3, this is the argument in favor of that. And then you give them responses above. The pro 3 respond to the pro 5 above. The pro 5 respond to the, so that you're not, because what we really want, I think, is each side, each position to give its best argument in favor of that position, as opposed to it being defensive or reflective. And then, but give an opportunity to respond as well. I think that makes for a more fulsome presentation to the public, because it's not just that the pro 5 opinion is flawed, right? Minority folks, it's also that there are things in favor of the 3. And so I think it's a better presentation to the public. Look, it's a win-win either way, or there's potential win either way. But let's think about first the pros of each and the cons of the other, something like that. So I don't know if that's helpful, but as a general principle, I guess, to summarize it, I would encourage you, let's think about making your best argument in favor of whatever you're going for, and dedicate less time and attention to responding, picking apart the other side. You can do that, but that doesn't feel as good, I think, to the public, because you wonder if it's heads I win, tails you lose kind of thing.
Yeah.
I agree, Dave,
well said,
very
Dave.
much.
Likewise.
Yep.
What if we use that as the format for the executive summary, so that can basically be taken out and stand alone? And if people choose only to read the executive summary, they get the gist, exactly what you just framed out.
That's our goal, right? To help educate the public.
I think they're a little bit different, though. I'd say what Dave was talking about is more like, when you go and vote on a ballot question and there's like the case for and the case against, whereas the executive summary is just a summary of the whole thing. So you don't have to read it all, but less like, here's one side, here's the other side. But I think they both are valuable things to have in this case, especially.
I personally think, Dave, I think your suggestion might just be a little too short. I think a short executive summary by both sides, 3 and 5, may encapsulate more of the argument. Whereas if you cut it to a half page, per 3 and 5, it may just be a little too short. to flesh out any real arguments. I think one page executive summary for each side could do that. Roger?
Perhaps, I don't know if it's a compromise or a best of both worlds, but perhaps what Dave is suggesting could be offered as an appendix, as something that might be presented at town meeting as a handout, should the question be put on the warrant. So you still have an executive summary that does exactly what an executive summary typically does. You have the fleshed out recommendations by both the majority and minority, and then you have a one-pager that the committee is offering to provide as a handout at town meeting should the question go.
I've been extremely surprised reading other towns' reports how short the narrative has been on 3 to 5. I mean, we're talking a paragraph in some of these. So I Roger, I hear you. I think sounds like a good idea. Yeah. Put your best argument forward and do it so it's easily digestible, either at town meeting or prior.
Well, let's adjourn and start drafting.
Anything else people want to discuss?
Deirdre, since you are going to be taking over revising Patrick's outline and putting that into the majority recommendation, would you like me to do what you had mentioned earlier, which is to synthesize my background and your summary of the research?
Sure, if you want to do that.
Two different. I just don't want you to have to be juggling two different tasks while we're also getting ready for Thanksgiving and all that.
Sure. Then can I just do a few comments then, since we can't do this offline? Patrick, is that fine?
Yes, no, absolutely.
So Roger,
would you like me to share the screen?
No, I don't. Well, it's up to you, but I don't think we need to go line by line. But it's just a very few suggestions for Roger. So basically, Roger, just in the introduction, so picking up on what we were talking about before with some of the legal language, I think potentially if you can maybe flip the first two paragraphs, but I guess what I'm hoping for is not to start the entire report with pursuant to section 5.6, because it reads a lot like a legal brief. And I think we'll lose people right off the bat. So I think something, just a more compelling opening that draws people in, but maybe start with the charge and then go back to the history of how it started would be my suggestion.
Go right for the lawyer's jugular, right?
What's that?
Go right for the lawyer's jugular.
Pursuant is a law speak. So. Just like my, we see that as a research speak, right? So, you're used to your own lingo. And I would also say, because you have all of our names on the front page, I wouldn't have one name in that second paragraph because it's like incongruous. So either have all names or no names. You know what I'm talking about? Where you say the 7 people appointed and 2 ex officios.
I'm not quite following what the.
So in the second paragraph.
Yeah, I know what you're
well,
saying.
it's like if you're going to name one person, then name all people, or don't name anyone because we're all already listed on the first page. But it seems weird to name one person personally and have the rest of us be.
Okay, so I guess I could revise that to just say 2 officio, 2
right.
ex officio members, the town
exactly.
administrator, and former town council / town moderator.
Right. Yes. Or even you might not even need the positions, but that's fine because
well,
everything.
I I think it's important for people to understand why the ex officios, like why they are, on the
Yeah.
committee. Yeah. So
I think you have the positions listed on the first page, but I don't.
I
have it in
don't
front of me.
know. I think I just did the name and then ex officio.
Okay. So I mean, I'm sure you can tell, but the overlap between what I did and what you did starts in the second paragraph of background and methodology.
Yep.
So you'll have to just weave it in and out, I guess.
Yep. That's
Yeah, so, yeah, I think that's it.
I thought in that section, it would be nice to actually just sum up the number of people who took the survey, just to show how broad a number that was. To express its gratitude to everyone. I would say to the 400 or, however many people it was that actually took a survey would be, it shows that there was a broad number of people that contributed to the research.
Well, I think we do say that it got 65 responses.
Yeah, I have it in the research section, 65 out of 150, 43% response rate.
Yeah. So I'll unless Kirsten, were you talking about a different?
Everybody that we talked to, it's like we did the public survey, we did the committee survey, we did outside of the town people, like there are just a lot of people that we talked to. So if I'm reading that, I'm going, okay, they did talk to a lot of people. Good. All right, got it. And maybe we don't have the exact number, but more than 250 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm sure I can put it together based on what we've got.
Great.
Unfortunately, I don't think the number is that large. I think there were 34 respondents to the public survey.
I think we're going to probably end up being able to say more than 100.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just barely.
Yes. That's a nice little number to say.
Yeah, I mean, there were people outside the town too. There was the public forum. We had a few people there.
Yeah. It wasn't for a lack of trying.
That's certainly true. Does anyone else have any comments they'd like me to incorporate into a next draft of the introduction, background, or summary of research that Deirdre did as I try to synthesize those two documents?
I had a question on the second page, I think, the paragraph in September 2021. I'm pretty sure that we kept the public survey open after October 21st. I think it was through the end of the month.
October 31st, we closed the public.
Yeah. So just that public survey was still open. So we didn't conclude the phase, the evaluation phase then.
Yeah, we closed data gathering October 31st.
Okay. All right, well, I will work those various comments in, and as I said, I'll take what Deirdre prepared. Deirdre, can you just put a Word version of your document up onto the drive so that I can then download that and pull it over and work it together?
From a visual perspective, I have to say the color pieces are quite nice, and it gives it a little more of a warmer feel.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. So Roger, add some colors.
Yeah, I'll keep those. I had the same reaction. So.
So what I didn't know how to do, but I'm sure Kirsten will in the end, but is how to anchor them so they don't swim around a bit. So
Yeah, I can also work on that. I'm maybe not, I don't know if I'm as good as Kirsten is, but I'm pretty good with Word.
okay.
So,
As long as you don't open with Google Docs, it should
yeah.
more or less hold together.
We're all showing our age here.
Google Docs is good, but you know, it doesn't have quite the formatting power that Word does.
No.
So.
Anything else? Anything else that people would like to see on the next agenda? I mean, it basically would just be doc review, minutes, of course.
Have we reached out to the select board to just to, you know, schedule? I don't know if we're going to do a presentation or, you know, how are we going to present this? Or we're just handing them a report, or are we going to go and talk to them? I think that would be worth discussing if we haven't already gotten feedback on that.
I haven't, but I can definitely reach out. That's an easy one. I can, and I'll put that on the agenda for next time.
Don't we have a scheduled delivery date in January or February?
It's in February on our roadmap.
We had a draft date though of December something.
That's internal, not going to the select board though.
Yeah.
So published, we don't have a hard date on published draft report. We do kind of have a hard date on the public forum in January, mid-January, January 14th.
Could we add to the agenda the scheduling of that public forum?
Yes.
Just so that we are giving ourselves ample lead time to make sure we find a date that works and doesn't come with long weekends when people may be going skiing or whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah, I think maybe we should just check the roadmap or the minutes, because I think the draft date was a little bit harder than we're thinking. And maybe we need to just revise that slightly.
So if we let's just work backwards from assuming the 14th is a good date. Mid-January, that gives plenty of time for to get on the warrant if it goes there. How long do we want the report out there before the public forum where we'll present it to the public? A week or a week? Reasonable?
Well, it goes public with the January 14th presentation to the select board.
The public, the 14th is the slated for the public forum. So that would just be
I see.
the public forum.
One more public forum before we finalize the document to give to the select board.
Or to more to present it to the public.
So
No, but
that's
it'd be presented in draft form, Patrick. It would not be. So if you look at the roadmap, we have published draft report, public forum input, then final report and committee vote on recommendation 131. So I think it is what Mike was saying. And we still.
So it does not get officially to the Board of Selectmen until February 1 or thereafter.
Yes.
It's out in the public in mid-January in order to hopefully generate public comment.
In draft form.
Yeah, draft. But then we come back to finish it off and we present a final report or a draft report, Roger?
No, final report.
Final report to the select board.
Yeah.
Feb 1 or thereafter.
Yeah, we would vote both to finalize the actual numerical vote, and then I presume we would vote to adopt the final report as well. And
Yep. Okay.
present it.
So I just want to point out, January 14th is the Friday of the MLK Day weekend. So that definitely is not a good time to have a
That was why I
forum.
suggested we have that on the agenda for next week, is figuring firm date.
And I assume that's not going to be the date, right?
Yeah, we could push earlier in that week. Because you don't want to push later because then you're in school vacation.
Right.
No, not school vacations. No,
That's February. Yeah.
I'm getting ahead. But if we push it to that Wednesday, the earlier Wednesday, the 12th. I'm just going to change the document to the 12th just so it's there. Then we've got roadmaps is February 15th to the select board. There will be a presentation date.
We just need to get on the select board agenda, right?
Yes, but I can talk to Catherine about firming that up. That should be a good week. Ryan, do you know what the drop dead date is on the warrant by any chance?
Let's see. I think everything. Let's see. It's February 4th. All committee board articles, commentaries to the town administrator's office by February 4th.
We might have to speed up a little bit.
So in our report, are we including draft warrant language that town council has reviewed?
I would say yes.
I mean, I think if we want to make it as easy as possible for the select board, that would be the best.
Yep.
Would it be possible, Patrick, for you to issue a revised roadmap / punch list so that it guides this committee collectively instead of us all thinking it was a different date or whatever?
Yes. Yeah, I'll work backwards from the February 4th date. We'll have to be a little bit quicker. And I think there is time here, especially from the public forum to actually publishing. There's a month there that we can shorten.
Mm-hmm. And if I heard correctly, we're going to go into considerable detail to try and finalize majority and minority on December 2nd, our next meeting. Right?
I would think so.
If we're going to make the revised deadline of early February, you just mentioned, we have to make progress in December.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say we probably need to have the draft report published before the turn of the year. And have that public forum as early in January as reasonable.
And not to be into the minutia, but in order to make that discussion on December 2nd to hopefully finally shape majority minority report, we should circulate the communal draft of the majority and the draft of the minority that Harriet and I will work out. That should be out through the website or however the official non-violating method of sharing stuff is before December 2nd, so we can all read it and be prepared to comment. So should we set a deadline of, November 30th or something? December 1 to get the documents on the website?
November 30th is an election day, so just.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, all I was trying to get at is we should come to the table on Thursday, December 2nd, ready to rock and roll as far as edits, paragraph by paragraph, get her done, type of thing.
Good
yeah.
idea.
So just to be clear on the process, following from what Mike said. So essentially, I'm going to now take over drafting the majority opinion, which is 4 of us, and Mike's going to take over drafting the minority opinion, which is 2. But I can't confer with any of the other 4 from between now and December 2nd, and Mike and Harriet can't confer between now and December 2nd either, right? We have to basically do all of our conferring separately but together in the same meeting. Is that correct? Because of the OML.
Mhm.
The one other option would be to post the draft by a date certain and have the members of each side then review and send comments to Patrick for incorporation into a new draft.
And of course, you got Thanksgiving right in there.
But I think if we, even if we went the way Deirdre's outlining, if we have that meeting on December 2nd, where there's a draft of each side for recommendation, and each side takes the time to go through it and offer suggestions, then that could be revised. Each recommendation could be revised for the next December meeting, I guess would be this December 16 or earlier if needed, and then finalize at that meeting for purpose of putting into the draft report.
Yes, and we could, depending how the 2nd goes, we could either schedule for the 9th or the 16th. Depending how far away we believe we are from an actual final draft.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but we would not be, Harriet and I would not be offering editorial comments to the majority report, and we wouldn't expect any comment from the 4 of you on ours. It's the integrity of the draft. Majority, minority, not a whole bunch of crisscrossing.
Right,
I
but
guess.
I think, I think that's true, but I think the 4 of us have to have that conversation at the meeting, and you and Harriet have to have that conversation at the meeting, if I'm understanding the restrictions of the OML correctly about working together. And that's what I'm asking. So if you and Harriet can confer, does that mean that I can work with Patrick and confer offline about constructing the draft? It's either okay for both sides or it's not okay for either side, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's what I'm
And
trying
it ought
to
to
get
be,
clarity.
it ought to be okay for both sides, because it's not a decisional matter. It's just trying to draft a bunch of words.
I don't
No
know.
action.
I think it's deliberation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So-
let's stop all this foolishness and change the open meeting law then.
Right now.
I nominate Mike. There's that.
Okay. We'll do whatever you and the lawyers tell us to do.
Yeah. So should we say that drafts should be made available? I know the 30th is election day, but it can also be made available prior to that. But in order to have a draft out there that people can review prior to the meeting on the 2nd, the 30th seems like a good date. As long as everyone gets out and votes. So let's say drafts due November 30th.
As long as I'm doing my copy editing afterwards, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then we'll take, based on the December 2nd meeting, we'll decide whether we need a weekly meeting or if we can go bi-weekly. The hope is to go bi-weekly. Does that work?
And speaking of that, Patrick, do we have December 16 as a planned meeting?
I would say that one would be a definite, and the 9th would be a possible.
Okay. December 16 definite, 9 possible. Right.
Anything else?
Patrick, I'm sorry. Are you scheduling a meeting for November 30th?
No, that's when drafts
Oh,
are
okay.
due. So drafts
Okay.
need to be posted online.
Right, but there's no meeting. Okay.
There's no meeting. No, the meeting will be on the 2nd.
And the protocol for the drafts on the 30th is to move them to you, Patrick, correct? And you'll place them in the right silo on the website.
That's fine. Yep. We'll use the new folder, the report sections. That's where things will be found.
Right.
Anything else we need to discuss?
So on the minority report, have we made a decision about who's writing it, or are you each writing something independently? Harriet, you're muted. I just wanted to clarify.
Mike and I will write one document.
But you can't.
What?
You can't do that, Harriet. That's deliberations.
I think this is wrong. This does not make sense to me at all. I've worked around the open meeting law for years and years. This is absurd.
But this is what the town council has opined on, that the document gets put out there, edits get sent to me, I can incorporate them, red line, and then we discuss at an open meeting.
So what will you do if you get two identical opinion pieces that are identical, but one that says Mike wrote it and one says I wrote it? Are you going to call foul on that?
Can I suggest, Harriet and Mike, that one of you do a first draft and post it for the November 30th date, and then the other make whatever comments, revisions to that you see are fit, and in the same way that the majority is going to approach this, it sounds like?
Now, wait a minute. Let me just put this aside for a second. We've been talking about the fact that if we have a board of 5, they will be able to talk between meetings. When you have a board of 3, 2 people cannot talk between meetings. Have we not established that?
Well, there's talking and deliberating. So talking.
Well, no, I'm saying that seriously. Did we not say that 2 people on a board of 5 could talk between meetings?
Talk, but not deliberate. So
Well, how are you going to differentiate? So Mike and I talk. How were you going to say that it was a deliberation?
The point, Harriet, is that you and Mike getting together is not a quorum, because we have more than 3 members on this board. So you can talk about anything, but you cannot deliberate. Whereas if,
Yeah, but how do you
please hold on. I wasn't finished, Harriet.
Okay.
Whereas if there were only 3 of us, let's just say it was you, me, and Mike, we're all that made up this committee. If the 2 of you got together and talked about whatever, that would establish quorum of the committee and would have to be noticed as an open meeting.
I understand.
Even if you were just talking about the weather. So that's the distinction.
I don't understand the difference between 2 people on a board of 5 talking, and that we've said it's okay. That's one of the reasons we're going to 5.
Because you have not established a quorum at that point, and it's not an open meeting. But those 2 people should not, I don't believe it's must not, but should not, under the Attorney General opinions, as I understand it, and as town council, I believe, has opined, should not deliberate, which means to have a discussion on the opinions of the members on the matters at hand.
But we have assumed just the opposite. We have
I don't think we
assumed
have.
that people will do that. In fact, one of the comments has been made that one of the problems with a board of 5 is that they will talk behind the curtain, so to speak, and they'll come in and make their decisions, and discussions won't be held in public. I mean, I've seen this. I've read all the we've put forth.
And that would be that would, as I understand it, be a violation of the open meeting law still. Just
Okay,
two
so,
out of three
to
did that.
get out of this, what you're saying is, I'll do a draft, or Harriet will do a draft, post it, and then she or I, as the case may be, will provide edits, and then there's the document ready to go to the broader committee action.
Except you have to
Right.
provide edits through Patrick or at the next meeting. So that's what I was saying before, is at the next meeting, we essentially have to have one discussion for the majority group. So the 4 of us comment on the document that I produced, and you and Harriet have a conversation at the meeting about the document you produce. That's how I understand the process. Or you send your written comments to Patrick. Harriet cannot send them directly to you. Just like the other 3 cannot
Right.
send them to me.
Okay, so that's the way it goes. That's what you guys understand as the legal thing, and if there was any difference,
That's what we've
Ryan
been told.
can find out from town council, but otherwise, you're okay with what's being said as far as you know, Ryan, your understanding of OML?
That sounds right, yes.
Okay, good enough for me. Let's move on.
And I do believe it's an abundance of caution, but I think that's
Yeah,
the right way to proceed.
So
Uh-huh.
does that mean that Harriet, you're going to write a draft?
I
Which,
suppose so, sure.
which
I think
Mike,
it's absurdity, and I think this is incorrect,
This
and
is-
I think it is destroying the concept of our group working together and coming up
right.
with proper positions to present to the town.
It's incredibly
Very-
awkward for everyone, Harriet. That's the problem, but we're all having to follow the same rules. That's what I'm just trying to make sure that it's really clear who's writing that draft. And then Mike, so if Harriet's writing it, Mike, you can read it. You can send your comments to Patrick before the meeting, and then we can all go over it together. But you can't do it outside of that. And that's the process everybody's following.
Mhm.
Okay, and then for the majority, who's doing what to whom?
So I'm going to write the
Who's doing
draft.
the first draft?
That
Deidre?
would be me, yes.
And then you send it to Patrick, and
To
it
post,
gets
yes.
edited by your 3 majority colleagues?
Well, they bring the comments to the meeting or they send their comments to
Yeah,
Patrick.
either same routine as Harriet and I have to follow.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, good. I mean, not good, but that's the way it is.
Right, exactly.
And
We've
Roger,
changed the- you know,
Roger is also working on a part.
We're gonna no longer use that old trite phrase, first thing we do is kill the lawyers. First thing we do is get rid of the GDOML.
Right.
It really affects the ability of the town to process things properly. But anyway, enough said.
All right. So I will talk to select board and try to firm up a date on the calendar, knowing that February 4th is a drop dead date. We'll put on the agenda to schedule the public forum. Documents due on the website by November 30th, and then the meeting on 12/2. And then a potential meeting on 12/9, and a definite meeting on 12/16.
Right,
Anything else?
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Uh-oh, wait a minute, the 2 minorities collaborated.
In an open meeting, it's
You
fine.
did so in an open meeting though, so you're all fine.
We're good. No
All right.
jail tonight.
Yeah, starting in the top corner, Harriet.
Fine.
And I. Kirsten,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Dave.
I,
I'm an I as well. I just want to say thank you to Catherine. I forgot to thank her at last night's CPC meeting. Thank you for taking our minutes. Doing a wonderful job. And thank you, Ryan, for being here. Everyone have a great.
Can I just give a quick, wanted to make a quick announcement to let people know that those of you who work with Laura Bongerino,
Right.
just want to make you aware that Laura has given her notice.
Yeah,
So
I heard.
I know Harriet and Patrick, you have some interface with her, so that it puts us down even further in the hole here in town hall. So I just want to make you both aware of that, such that if you are planning any meetings in the near future, that you plan accordingly. We'll try to see what we can do to help out those committees and boards in terms of setting those meetings up.
Sorry to hear that.
Yes, I had heard that, and I've deferred our next HDC meeting to January, if at all possible. Just I think that would be easier.
Yes, I think it would, Harriet. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. Okay. All right, folks. Well, have a great Thanksgiving. And
You too.
thank you all.
And
Thanks
thank
for
you
all your
all
hard
for
work,
Thank you
everyone.
all for keeping a smile about some of this stuff. Good committee.
Thanks,
good
everyone.
committee.
Have a great, yes, it is. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.